Sup, y'all? It's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about some pretty unexpected news that came out regarding Legion dungeons. Two of the new 10 Legion dungeons, the Court of Stars and the Arcway, are going to be available in Mythic difficulty only. Now, this is the first time since Cataclysm, since patch 4.3, that's the patch with Dragon Soul, and also with LFR, that there has been any PvE content, dungeon, or raid related that has been added into the game that has not had a semi-guaranteed success counterpart available to it that's in the random matchmaking group finder. So this is a huge change, a huge, I would assume, a paradigm shift. And I mean, honestly, guys, I would say it's a really big deal because it's the first time that this has happened in the better part, I think, of a decade. And if we want to look at just dungeons specifically, we have not had a single dungeon that's been added into the game ever since the group finder that has not had a dungeon finder element added into it at the same time, like with some sort of difficulty where you can basically do the dungeon on like an easier difficulty. So this is the first time that you are literally not able to see that content unless you complete it and you actually create a group and make it yourself, because of course there is no matchmaking for Mythic difficulty and Legion. So anyway, guys, I want to talk to you guys about this. I want to give you guys like kind of the way I feel about it. But and I'll just do a real quick TLDR. I think it's great. I think it's a great idea, and I hope to do it with pretty much everything. And so that's the way I feel. But before I do that, I do want to explain how you actually get the attunement, and that's pretty much what it's kind of called. And they're kind of bringing back attunement in general in Legion, but these are the first two dungeons that are going to be getting it. Now, this was originally, the Court of Stars was going to be the only dungeon that was going to be available, and it might be 9 dungeons. I don't know how many dungeons actually are in Legion, but I think it's 10. Court of Stars was going to be the only dungeon that had an attunement, but then they just recently added Arcway. Now, my understanding is that now the attunement kind of takes less time. In some ways, there's not like a rep component to it. But again, don't really quote me on that either. Basically, what you have to do is you have to get about midway through the Suramar questline, and at that point, you're able to do the Arcway and the Court of Stars. Now, if you don't do the Arcway and the Court of Stars, that doesn't stop you from finishing the Suramar questline. That's kind of like an added reward and kind of a tangent that the questline can go on if you do want to go ahead and do that. Now, of course, whenever you're doing anything that's harder to get to, right? So with greater effort should come greater reward, and Blizzard actually is going to be doing that with these two dungeons. They're going to be adding what's like really the word for it. No, they're going to be having some sort of extra incentives. I'm assuming that it might not be just baseline better item level gear, but it might have some other things in with it, like maybe like a mount or pets or lots of ancient mana, which is a currency that you use in Suramar, or some sort of other incentivization for people to actually go ahead and get this attunement and do these two dungeons. So anyway, guys, the way I feel about this, I think this is a really, really good idea. At some level, I think that people should be able to do the content with a lot of the content with like relative ease, but like honestly, whenever I've done the Mythic dungeons in Legion beta, they're really not that hard to do. I think that anybody that really wants to get them done is going to be able to do them. And so it's not like this is a situation like the Sunwell or like Nax 40. These dungeons are about as hard as the Mythic Warlords of Draenor dungeons would have been if they had been released on whenever Warlords of Draenor came out. And I do think that the Warlords of Draenor Mythic dungeons were actually the first type of content, again, the first mode of dungeon content at all, that actually, well, I guess besides challenge modes, but they did add these Mythic dungeons, and they're not queuable. And so I think this could be a little bit more indicative of Blizzard kind of moving away from the random matchmaking paradigm that they've been focusing on. They focused a lot on it in Mists of Pandaria, and again, a lot in Warlords of Draenor, but I would say maybe not quite as much, or at least it's not incentivized as much as it was in Mists of Pandaria. So I honestly think this is a really, really great first step. Hopefully that's what it's going to be. Now, will it be that? I don't really know. Now, I would also say, now I've been reading also a lot about this, and I would say that about 90% of the people, 90% of the comments, the feedback, just the discussions have been positive receptive towards this change. But there have been some people who are complaining about this and are not happy about it. And I'm not going to call those people casuals. I don't want to insult casuals. They're not casuals. They're not casual players. The people that are complaining about it, in my opinion, are lazy, apathetic, and very, very antisocial. I think those are the three things that, those types of players are not going to be happy about this change, and that's why I think it's such a great change. There have been a lot of really, I think toxic, I really don't like to use that word, but I do really think it fits here, toxic elements that have come out of the game and have been fostered and facilitated and nurtured through the matchmaking system, the random matchmaking system, with the lack of accountability and lack of control over like the people in your group, and just kind of a lot of other things that I've talked about before that I don't really want to go over again. So those people are obviously not very happy about it. Now, some of the concerns that they did have, some of them are at least like halfway reasonable and at least worthy of discussion. And so one of the concerns that they have, well, the two concerns that they really have, besides like, oh, I want to be able to do this dungeon, but I don't want to have to make a group for it. So that's just bullshit, and we're not even going to talk about that because those people are lazy pieces of shit, and it's better off that Blizzard is not making decisions for them. I think it's better for everybody. But besides that, the other thing is that they said that the class questline, the class order hall questlines, and the profession, some of the profession questlines, I think warrior class line, class quest line, has to do with Court of Stars, and the enchanting quest line has to do with either the Arcway or the Court of Stars as well. So they're kind of upset about that. Now, my personal opinion is that, I think in vanilla, like whenever you got level 40 as a paladin, you got a really easy mount. Whenever you got level 40 as a warlock, you got a really, really easy to get mount. But if you were any other class, you had a little bit harder. And there were other things that were the opposite. Like some classes, like warriors were really not very good leveling up, but they became a lot stronger whenever they got gear. And so adding that little bit of variety and, something else that you have to do as certain classes, I don't really think is always a bad thing. Now, of course, I'm playing a warrior, and so I'm going to have to go through this. It might take me another day or two to get my third relic slot, because that's, of course, what completing the Order Hall class campaign allows you to do. So that correlates to about 30 to 40 extra item levels on your weapon. So it's very, very big. You really want to have this done, but at the same time, it's not, like being a day behind or something like that isn't going to, be the end of the world. And for the people that it would be the end of the world for, they're going to just get it the next day, and, it's not really going to be a big deal either way. So I don't really think that the class thing, I think that the class thing is at least partially, like, okay, I can see what you're saying, it's not really the best thing to do, and some people could be annoyed by this because it feels like their class is getting punished more than others. Okay, yeah, I get that, but I think that that's okay. I would rather have the diversity and variety of the different, like class order hall campaigns and everything. Some of them could be harder than others, and I think that's completely okay. You're fucking warrior. The last thing you're gonna do is bitch about having to go kill extra stuff. It doesn't even make sense. Like, if you're bitching about that, maybe you should re-roll, play a fucking priest or something. But anyway, on top of that, you got the professions. Now, professions in some ways make sense to me, but ultimately, I think that whenever you look at this, from a, kind of an economic perspective, it really doesn't. Now, Blizzard has already said that there are going to be no exclusive player power items that are that are exclusive to that player for having that profession. So, like, back in Mists of Pandaria, you had the 2 sockets for blacksmithing, you got 2 extra sockets. Jewel crafting had better gems, skinning had crit chance. There's going to be nothing like that is going to be exclusive to players through professions, through having that profession. So that means that the things that you're getting through Court of Stars here can be obtained through the auction house, probably, or they can be obtained through other ways, and I don't even really know entirely what they specifically are. But my point really is that if you're not able to get this, it's not like Court of Stars is the only way that you can obtain this item. And honestly, guys, there have always been professions that are kind of geared more towards like raiders, and there have always been professions that are geared more towards more casual players and just people who don't really do a lot of organized content. An example of that is like the difference between skinning and blacksmithing. Skinning, what do? You just go kill bears, then you go kill wolves, and then you maybe go kill dragons, and now you're maxed up skinning. That's it. So you don't really even have to do anything. It's not like you have to go get patterns from raids. There's no real raiding component to skinning. It's the same as herbalism or another gathering profession like mining. And even mining would be kind of a difference because you had the dark iron ore, which was kind of correlated to raiding stuff. But especially with like skinning and herbalism, there's nothing really that you had to do. And so like if you weren't a raider, you weren't doing any of that stuff, you could go and get those professions and not worry about being gated or not being able to do certain things with those professions because you weren't raiding. But if you really wanted to, if you were an in-game player and you wanted to put in more work, you can also get in more of a reward if you were doing like tailoring or blacksmithing. Myself as a warrior, I very fondly remember blacksmithing had a lot of patterns that you would get in Burning Crusade. There were the patterns that you could get from world drops, and then you would get the ones for 5-mans, and then from Karazhan. I think they were Karazhan, but they weren't really useful. And then the SSC patterns, like the Red Belt of Battle. And so you were able to further progress your profession as you moved on through the raids, and the professions would level up with you in a way and kind of help you augment your raid gear. And I think that was a really, really good thing. And also, you know, if you want to look at this economically again, this is kind of like an element of supply and demand. So if there are very, very few people who can actually complete this Court of Stars or this Arcway quest line, whatever it is, then what they're getting out of it is going to be very, very valuable. So it creates an even more of an incentive to do that and actually makes those professions even better. Now, I don't really know. I personally don't think that that's really going to have an effect. And the reason for that is because of how easy Court of Stars is and how easy the Arcway is. Even on Mythic, they're really not that hard, guys. Don't worry about it. So, you know, a lot of the times, like, I think that it's very important for Blizzard to make things fair, but also at a certain level, they can't really make everything perfectly fair. I think that there are some people, guys, and I think this is really, really bad, but there are some people who I think that the only time that they would be satisfied is if the only difference between a warlock and a mage was the color of their spells. That would be it, and that they would finally be happy. But I think for the health of the game and what really makes things special, what makes things what makes it what matters, you know, and like Blizzard, you know, they can't give people rewards and make them feel rewarded. People have to feel rewarded themselves. And I think that, you know, things like this actually finally achieving, you know, the chance where you can go into this special expansive, because Court of Stars and Arcway are probably the best and most expansive dungeons, or maybe not the best, that's subjective, but I do believe that they're the most expansive dungeons that are available in Legion right now, to actually be able to go into those dungeons and make that extra step, you know, and not just be making a progression of difficulties, but also a progression of difficult raids and difficult dungeons in this circumstance. I think that's what's really, really going to make people feel like they're actually progressing, you know, and I think that's important. You know, just doing the same shit over and over on higher difficulties, I'm skeptical to see how long that's going to keep people engaged. Diablo 3 does that, and their population falls off after a month. If that happened with WoW, the game would be dead because it's a subscription model. So I think that there does need to be a progression of different actual content, not just difficulties of content. And so seeing this happen in the game finally again is hopefully going to be a very, very good thing. Now, I do want to hear what you guys think about this. Now, personally, I don't know if this is Blizzard. This is the first time that Blizzard's going to be doing this, and then now they're kind of moving away with their design philosophy and paradigm, and moving away from random matchmaking. That's what I think is very good. I think random matchmaking is a cancer to the game. It's toxic. It's very, very bad. And everything that's come out of it, almost everything, there are some things that are good, but the bad things do outweigh the good things. So I do think that it's very, very, very toxic, and so I would be very glad if Blizzard was finally moving away from that and trying to give people the chance to succeed on their own accord. And I think that's what's really going to make people, again, what I was saying before, feel rewarded. And I think that's what's important. That's why people, that's what keeps somebody playing a game for 10 years, you know, and that's what they need to be fostering. They need to foster those experiences. And I think that, does Court of Stars and Arcway being Mythic only, is that going to foster that experience with somebody? Maybe a few people, sure. But what that really does is it shows me, and it makes me hope, at least, that that design philosophy is going to be expanded in the future in Legion and in future expansions and whatever they're going to do outside of WoW. I think that like video game socialism is not really a good thing, and I do also want to make kind of a clarification here. This is not a real life debate. I don't want to talk about real life politics or anything, but I think that video game socialism is not a good way to create a rewarding game. And so this to me seems like kind of a step away from that direction and the step in my perspective, the right direction, even though it does kind of have a double political meaning. But anyway, so I hope you guys agree. But if you don't, go ahead and let me know. If you do, of course, I want to know. But besides that, guys, that's pretty much all I've got. So I'm, again, very, very curious to see what other people have to say about this. You know, some concerns, some legitimate concerns, but I do think that at the end of the day, they're making the right decision. So anyway, guys, go ahead and let me know what you think. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I've got. So thank you for watching, and like, comment, and subscribe.